I totally don't mean to be like a Chrome hipster, but I am really getting to the point where it feels like Chrome is way too big. There's way too much stuff, and Google doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. Like they're adding in payments APIs to the desktop browser in Chrome 60. They are making it. They're re-engineering the way that it handles your mouse cursor, and they're doing a lot of improvements. So I got to give them credit. Like it's making steady progress, but it's getting a little ridiculous as to the amount of things that Chrome can do. And the versioning is just getting out of control. It's like version 60 is the new beta. It's nuts. And not that Firefox is too much better. As we record, they just released version 54 this morning. But this is what's awesome about 54. And maybe, Wes, I know you were joking about switching back to Firefox, but this could be it here because they're bringing the multiple process system to other operating systems besides Windows.
Hey, that's exciting.
Yeah, so it's like
I have been waiting for that.
Me too, very much. So it's like I'm looking at Chrome right now, and I'm going. There's some extensions like Template is just such an awesome extension for composing our show notes. It's so great.
What is that? What does it do?
Game changer. It's a game changer.
I don't know about this. I'm not hip.
It's an extension that lets me. So take this paragraph right here.
Mm-hmm.
You got a title that's probably like a header 5 maybe or header 4. It's probably a header 3 or 4. Then you have a paragraph here that has some links in it. It looks like it has 2 separate links. And what I can do, which is really great, is I can highlight this text on this webpage. I can right click. Everybody's going to steal this from me now. I can go to Template, and then I can say quote and link. And what's great about it is, so if I go to text edit here, not test edit, but if I go to text edit, what it's produced for me is simple, easy, clean markdown where it's given me a markdown link for the URL. It grabs the title of the website.
That's handy.
And it looks like it was a header 2. And so it doesn't actually accommodate header 2, ironically. But if, say, there wasn't a header there, it would put the text I selected in a markdown block quote, and then it does reference links for all the URLs in that.
That's neat, yeah.
Now, as somebody who does this 200 times a day, you can imagine how nice it is to not have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of what I'm doing for all of our show research all the time, for all the shows every single day. And it is so handy, especially like when we're on the air and say, Ikey says something that's like really something I want to cite in the show notes, like, yeah, go grab this thing here, or here's the post where he talks about this. I can quickly, while I have it up on my screen, grab that text and go drop it.
It's already ready for
right in the dock, and then it goes out as part of the show notes.
Super handy.
So I love those things.
No messing.
But I bet you somebody out there in the audience could come up with a way that's not a browser extension, because that's what I'm going for here. Let's just get off the browser extension sauce completely and come up with other methods to do that, to other ways to process text. Now, I don't know exactly. It would have to be probably something that can read my clipboard, because I could copy it into my clipboard, and then something that could read my clipboard and output structured markdown for me would really be all I need. And then I could start switching to Firefox. I could do GNOME Web. I mean, it really wouldn't matter at that point. And I think that's the direction to go. And once I replace some of these things that I can only do in my browser with other tools that are just more operating system based, then I think I'm going to go back to Firefox, which would probably be a couple of releases down the road where this stuff's landing. It could be one big kumbaya, Wes.
Oh, kumbaya.
This is Linux Unplugged, episode 201 for June 13th, 2017. Oh, welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly talk show that has a show so good this week, we probably should have made it our 200th episode. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
You know what, Wes? Sometimes you roll the dice and you have a 200th episode where nothing happens, and then the next week, it's like, oh, damn. Now that's the party. So I'm really excited because we've got some great follow-up stories of things we've talked about recently in the show just a couple of weeks ago. A project that I think doesn't get enough attention has a new release. Then we'll get into a couple of news stories that we haven't talked about, do a deep dive into Fedora's, or I guess Red Hat's Cockpit, the security of it, some interesting choices they've made. We'll discuss the new Fedora 26 beta as well. And then the internet's friend, Ikey, that's what I'm calling him now, everyone's favorite distro maker, joins us to discuss his big news and the resulting huge news for Solus users. And then I'm really happy to announce that something that was locked down to Windows users and proprietary systems will be opened up to all of us. And it was opened up in such a big way. And then I was so impressed by the project, I did a little deep diving and discovered There it is. Discovered the source of something magical. Maybe I'm overselling it a bit, but I can tell you it's better than a keyboard. If Apple can call a keyboard magical, I'm definitely calling...
Can and does.
Yeah, they can and do currently. Yeah. I'm calling this story magical, and that's more magic than their magic. So I think it holds up. A lot of good stuff to get into, a lot of fun stuff, and we have ourselves, as always, a traditional virtual lug. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Time-appropriate greetings.
Hello.
Good day.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi. Hello. Howdy.
Yeah, we'll let them be the judge of if you're overselling this or not.
Yeah, you think so?
Mm-hmm.
They were so quiet. They did so good. Like, I don't know if you heard, like,
Not a peep.
I paused right before I introduced them because I had to like double check the soundbar. I looked over and like, shit, I didn't mute them. I usually mute them, but we were just shooting the shit before the show, and so I muted you and hi.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Left them unmuted during the intro and during that whole setup of the show, and none of you guys screwed it up. That is,
we love you.
Really, best audience in podcasting. I swear to God, it is so amazing. You guys are literally more professional than me today. It's
by far.
Job well done. I got so excited about the new Firefox that I lost my head. So let's start with some follow-up. The big GNOME survey that Joey published on OMG Ubuntu. I didn't know when we were going to... I actually didn't know if we would hear the results.
Could be months. Sometimes those things don't,
Maybe we'll find out when they ship the LTS version of
this is what you wanted.
Yeah. But no. No, the results are in. And I don't know. I don't find them to be too shabby, but I would say overall my reading of Joey's post on OMG Ubuntu was a little disappointed. He was like, well, a little uncommittal on some of this stuff, but check out some of these numbers, and congrats to OMG Ubuntu for pulling this all in. Do you hear that?
Yeah, you're squeaking.
That's my chair.
You're so squeaky.
I got to get some ranch hand on that thing. Ranch hand, Wes. That's better than WD-40. Get some ranch hand. So a massive 18,330 people took part in the survey. There were 8 questions, if you recall. They were all optional. And they just asked people to rate how useful they considered various GNOME extensions on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being not useful, and a 5 being very useful. The first question was about the Dash to Dock extension.
Yeah.
And 17,948 people participated in that question. And 80% of them, Wes, rated Dash to Dock as a 3, 4, or 5. 80% people thought at least it was useful. And this is where I think Joey's maybe a slight disappointment seems to come through to me. And I don't mean to put words into his mouth. I might be misreading this. But he says Dash to Dock's he said it seems like a slam dunk to him. So Canonical responds, Dash to Dock's popularity doesn't necessarily mean we should ship Dash to Dock as an extension by default, but rather it shows us our users would like the dock to be visible at all times or shown hidden automatically, as opposed to only shown in the activities view. He says that sounds uncommittal by Canonical and sounds like it almost like their intention is to persuade GNOME upstream to add Dash to Dock functionality in.
Interesting.
Which sounds like the beginnings of a rift. That's how things start. We got this great idea for notifications or the way system tray icons should be handled. Hey, here's some suggestions in code. What do you think? And GNOME says, well, we've already got that figured out. Thanks, though.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on how the upstream would take it, right? Would you want Dash to Dock features built into GNOME? Would you use that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it on every GNOME system. I'm not a big fan of hidden UI elements to begin with, especially for anybody who's using a system for a first time, expert user or total noob. When you rely on certain incantations, aka gestures, or putting your mouse in a certain corner to get the menu, or knowing that there's a particular button on your keyboard that you should press to activate that menu, I think you're expecting too much from the end user. They sit down in front of most interfaces in their life, and like say their car or a drill or a microwave, and everything's laid out in front of them, and then it's up to them to deduce how to operate that machinery, and their intelligence will either make them more successful or less successful. But when you completely hide the interface from them, there's literally nothing for them to grok. There's nothing for them to intuit from it. There's nothing for them to instinctually poke at. And so they either have to know, well, on a lot of systems, if I flick up from the bottom, or I know that on Windows, if I press this key, it brings up the start menu, which most users don't know. I find it to be poor UI design. And so yes, to me, dash to dock is a must. Just like I also agree with 90% of the respondents who said that top icons is useful. 90% of the respondents say, yeah, we want top icons. And I think, again, this is another one of those, you have this little nubbin that likes to sit there and flatulate down in the corner of your GNOME desktop, and it's irritating as fuck, especially when you have a full screen application, which, by the way, GNOME encourages you to use. So anytime you're interacting with the UI down there, you have this stupid little thing flatulating down there. Nobody likes it. Plus, again, it's hidden UI, and so I can completely become unaware that I've left Neleus sucking down resources in the background when it hides the icons, or that Skype is logged in. These are things that I like to have a heads-up display about, so I am aware of these applications sucking down resources in the background.
You're saying your shell should tell you about the applications that you're running?
And I think most GNOME users agree. So there's certain obvious things like this that I think if Canonical were to go to GNOME and say, well, duh, guys, you should be doing it this way, they go, well, screw you. We intentionally didn't design it that way. I don't know. Maybe Ikey, do you think my reading of this is too extreme?
No, well, not overly extreme.
Appropriately extreme.
I find, yeah. I mean, I guess
an appropriate level of extremity.
So I find some of these answers too to be pretty obvious. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, if you compare what Ubuntu was shipping before versus what they're going to go now, a lot of it feels polar opposite and isn't going to be discoverable by their user base. So if you look at things like top icons, they're kind of a must-have. And as for the dash to the dock, well, that kind of speaks for itself. And then to say that perhaps it's not as important, it doesn't quite add up in my head. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I can totally see them either implementing it on their own or just shipping the extensions. I don't think Canonical has to play hardliner here, so they have sort of an advantage. Okay, if you guys want to do it upstream, we are happy to do that. But if you don't want to, we will package up these extensions and we'll maintain them and make sure that we test them before we ship you package upgrades to GNOME. And
yeah, I mean either of
cross to
those
bear.
sound okay.
Yeah. So practically to end users, I think they'll still get the functionality. It was the most divisive result. Can you guess what it was? Of course, you'd have to remember all of the different options, so it's not a fair question. But it's one that Joe and I just talked about in Linux Action News on Monday. No top left hot corner and the applications menu, which is I think pretty not surprising because we've also talked about in this show they were the biggest deviations from GNOME's core design.
Right.
The applications menu gives you, that drop-down applications. And the left trigger area, which is I think really GNOME was almost reliant on people accidentally triggering it to discover how to use the desktop. But
it's inevitable that will happen.
And then the last one, which is cut right down the middle, and this is the one Joe and I were talking about, actually. Window controls, left or right, which they're on 17.10 beta right now, or alpha. They're on the left, like a
right?
Mac,
Yeah.
like a damn dirty Mac. But
I don't really care.
Yeah.
Is there like I know how to
why
close
the hell
a
is it
window.
not configurable?
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose that could be. Yeah.
If I switch over to Arc, do they stay on the left?
Mm.
That would be a bit of a pain in the butt. Anyways, so there you go. Follow up on the survey results. I find the whole thing to be sort of a good inclination, or a good not inclination, but a good foreshadowing of where all this is going. And I'm really kind of happy we got to see some of the results. I wasn't sure. It doesn't tell us what their decisions are going to be.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll see some upstream activity or, I don't know, actual decisions forthcoming.
In some ways, I'm really glad they're not saying what their decisions are because it gives them the opportunity to try different things out, go all in on an idea.
Right, yeah. Hopefully they can land on an idea that it will actually work and they can invest in it.
It allows them to bounce around without being constrained by the things they've promised.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably a good thing that they're not. And really, the core truth will just be whatever ships.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, okay, one more story that's sort of breaking today as we record the show. I've been trying to do these sort of the top, not to take away from less news coverage. I've been doing a little less news coverage in this show and trying to do more community stuff, more project stuff, more things that I think are applicable to daily Linux users, people who live and breathe in Linux, but stuff that's really super news heavy and headliney. I'm sort of saving for Linux Action News.
That makes sense.
So I'm kind of shifting some of the tone of some of this stuff to be more like community projects and things that are sort of underreported, but really great sources of discussion or really interesting things happening at. And I've been enjoying it more and more. And one of the projects I'm kind of including in that, because I don't think it really gets a lot of discussion, it's maybe just more of a small community focus. People who love it really know it, but we never really discuss it. And it's Open Media Vault. And Open Media Vault 3 actually shipped today.
Whoa.
It's been, yeah. It's been in, I mean, it was close to shipping when I reviewed Open Media Vault months ago. And so it is using Debian 8, Jesse, as you would probably expect.
Yep.
They've totally, quote-unquote, refactored the back end, and they have, quote-unquote, adapted that back end to systemd.
Hey, moving with the times. That's good to see.
Seems like that's probably kind of obvious since Debian made the switch to systemd. Anyways,
hey, they wrote new unit files.
Yeah, that's true. Also added support for extended FAT, which will be nice for people hooking up external devices to import them into their Open Media Vault.
LVM snapshots.
Yeah, and improved. LVM snapshots is good, and improved USB and rotational storage device detection. I brought this one up because I think this is a direction I want to go with the Open Media Vault server I set up for Angela months ago. I was considering setting up another one here at the studio eventually, and then setting up some sort of rotational backup system between her place and this place.
That would be pretty slick.
Yeah, a little offsite exchange, and maybe something like, because we're talking terabytes and terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. So maybe something like maybe I could do the initial moving of data would still probably take days, and then like it syncing over the internet would probably be sufficient after that. I don't know. Something I was considering, so I was really happy to see that go into Open Media Vault 3 as well.
No more i386 though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still install it, I guess, but they will no longer be making an ISO image.
Yeah, at first I was like, so what? But then I was like, actually, one of the really nice things about FreeNAS and Open Media Vault is this whole take something that you were maybe going to toss or has been sitting around in your garage or whatever for months or years and get new life, get new use out of it. And
yeah,
I think,
that's true.
I think
this is my old rig. I don't need much. I'm not doing
Yeah.
a crazy array, but I can buy a little extra RAM, put some disks in it. And that's a good point.
You know, Mr. West, last week was our 200th episode.
Is that right?
I know. And in tradition, we were pretty unplanned, pretty unorganized. I mean, this is the quote-unquote Unplugged show, which suffers from time to time from proper planning. I admit that is part of it. It is a design flaw, if you will. But we are making up for it in a big way. On America's birthday, Tuesday, July 4th, 2017, we will be having a virtual lug become a real lug. Wow, how about that? It's not virtual when you're going to actually be here.
Well, it's
inviting.
hard not to say though.
We are inviting you, the lug out there, to come join us in person here at the JB1 studio for a little barbecuing, or Noah has advised me to call it grilling.
Fair enough.
I've been advised by my counsel.
But we didn't invite him, so it's fine.
You should tell him he's not invited, because then he would show up.
Ooh,
So,
yeah, all right.
that's a little
Disinvite.
Noah trick for you there. Tell him he can't do something and he'll do it. Sorry, Noah, you can't come. You just absolutely cannot come. I don't think you could pull it off. I don't think you have the
It's
means.
not really your crowd.
Yeah, and I just don't think you could make it happen. So there you go. Maybe now we'll see him. So that'll be streamed to some degree. I'm not exactly sure how the hell we're going to do that since we'll be outside, but people have. It's already been committed, so I'm going to try to make that work. I wasn't conferred with on that decision, but I can try to make it happen. But be here. Dustin's going to also be here, sous vide. I might have another sous vide going. I don't know.
Oh.
There has been rumors of ribs as well. Wes, if you got any inclinations of something you'd like to make, you are welcome.
Okay.
Like a nice, I don't know, macaroni and cheese. No, I don't know. Fruit salad. I don't know.
Oh, I could bring some Hawaiian mac salad. Yes.
What?
Oh,
Really?
Heck yes, I can
Okay,
do
there
that.
you go.
Absolutely.
Shit, I
Coming
would
right
love
up.
to get down on that. We're going to celebrate 200 weeks, I think without interruption too, of the Unplugged program on July 4th, which is not too long before I hit the road and head off to Montana. So we'll talk a little bit about that in user error, but I will be gone shortly after that. I think I leave the weekend after that barbecue. So we have the barbecue on the 4th of July. Yeah. And then I leave on the 14th. So so I'll be back. I'll be here for one Unplugged after our barbecue one. And then I'll be on the road.
If we survive.
if the studio doesn't get burned down. So if you're going to be able to make it, I don't think we're having, probably it's going to be a small crowd, because not only is it only people in our neck of the woods are going to be able to make it, which is, a tiny percentage of the audience.
Yeah.
But then half the people that say they're going to go don't show.
And people have, jobs and kids and lives too. We get that.
But of course, I'm gonna buy enough food for all the people that say they're going.
Yeah.
So those of you who do make it, we're gonna
There'll be food. It's gonna be great.
We're gonna have a very food coma episode that week. Anyways, meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. If you think you could make it, we'd really like to see you. And toss in there. We got a little conversation going. Meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. To have Wes and Chris cook for you.
That's right.
That's what we're doing for 200 episodes. What the hell? Who thought? That was my idea, too. They should be
more work for us.
They should be... Damn it, Wes! Take this down, Wes. For episode 300, the audience cooks for us, okay? Can you... Thank you. Make a memo.
Note is made. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Next time. I'm new to this. I'm still learning.
Someday.
Yeah. Linux.ting.com. Go there to support the show. And if you sign up, you'll get either, if you bring a device or if you got no device, you're going to get a great deal. You get $25 in either purchase power off a phone or $25 in service credit. Now you're like, Chris, it's $25? Yeah, I know it's $25 because $25 matters. Average Ting line, it's going to be $23 per month per phone. So you get $6 just for the line. I'm going to break this down for you right now. Ready, Russ? Ready? Like you never heard before.
Let's hear it.
$6 for the line, and then just whatever you use, that's what you pay for the minutes, the messages, and the megabytes. Oh, I got the chair squeak in there, too.
Yeah.
That was good. I hope that showed up on mic. Hold on, let me see. Hold on. Did I get it in there? Did I get it in there? See, the chair squeak's important. The chairs, because that tells you I'm a thrifty person, and so you can trust my recommendation.
Spending money all over town.
No, because I'm in a
broadcast equipment for the studio.
No, it literally impacts the broadcast. It infects the job. And you know what? I'll tell you what. When I see a good deal, I'll get a chair, and when I saw a good deal, I win it, and I got Ting. Linux.ting.com. That's where you go to support the show and get the $25 credit. Now, I think you're probably going to have a device that works. Check their BYOD page to be sure. But they got a CDMA network and they got a GSM network. And so that's a lot of network. And that means it's going to work with a lot of phones. You have a great dashboard, nationwide coverage, no contracts, no early termination fee. You just pay for what you use. However much you talk, however much you text, however much data you use, that's what you pay for. Like me, I'm all on the Telegram. A month or more since I've gotten a text message. What I tend to get is either an SMS alert about a system being down or a 2-factor thing on one of my services that I use. That's maybe like 3 or 4 text messages, maybe one a week.
Yeah.
There's no way I'd want to pay for more than that. There's just a waste of money. It's just a waste. I'm pissing in the wind. Is that the saying? Like throwing money into the wind? Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'd be like pissing on money and throwing it in the wind, which then it would just come back wet and smack me in the face.
Gross now.
It's
You've
super
ruined the
gross.
money.
I don't care. Like, it's just don't want it. It's a waste of money. It was literally a waste of money. Linux.ting.com. Great devices, either from Ting directly or you can bring your own. And they have fantastic customer service, a great dashboard, and a blog that I follow. And this one, I'm going to put out there as probably the best retrospective I've read on Pokemon Go. Looking back at it, really what it was about was augmented reality becoming a thing. And I think long-term, that's what we're going to take away. You don't really see people walking around playing.
Rite of passage for AR there.
Exactly. It's a really good write-up on it and on AR in general and the state of AR in the market and where it's going and the different vendors that are getting in on it, including Google and Apple and even Facebook in there and Samsung. It's just a great write-up. Start if you want to read that, but start by going to linux.ting.com. They got a picture of a dog with a Ting sticker too. Linux.ting.com. You go there, look around, and even if you're not ready to switch to Ting, I recommend their blog. It's a good resource for pretty much any enthusiast out there. Linux.ting.com. It's a shame our friends from Canonical couldn't join us this week because I'm about to talk about their favorite subject right now, and that would be snap packages. Snap packages have finally gotten something that Flatpaks can do, and they essentially make the snap packs smaller. So take Corebird, a Twitter client. It's about 2 megabytes. The Flatpak would be about 12 megabytes. And the snap of Corebird, 112 megabytes.
That's good, right? I mean, you get more software that way.
Holy shit. Holy shit. And see, the thing is Flatpaks are able to take advantage of shared GNOME stuff, shared like stuff outside of just that Flatpak, like the GNOME platform runtime. So snaps are essentially getting functionality close to this now. That's my rough understanding. Like I said, I don't want to misrepresent what it is, but my understanding is that now if there is a GNOME platform snap, you could pull that in as part of Corebird. So I think you would still be pulling that stuff down if you don't have it originally.
Right, but it's then would be shared across different apps that all use now.
Yeah. Ikey, do you have a better understanding of any of this than I do? I'm assuming you must.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically doing the same sort of thing at the moment as Flatpak is doing. That's basically what it comes down to, bundling up the shared library. So you've got this shared, dare I say, dependency to deduplicate the dependencies between the apps. So while the app may appear smaller, you still have that initial cost of that runtime.
But once you've installed one app
between loads of them.
Right.
Yeah. And at the moment, I believe it's limited to GNOME only. I'm not really sure how scalable this is going to result in being, though. Because while the GNOME is a very specific platform, if you start getting things that have these custom patch libraries, now it's not going to work there. As soon as things are bundled in their own libraries, you just can't deduplicate them. So time will tell. I mean, it's an early start, but it's a good start.
Time will tell if people don't end up just bundling their own GTK stuff, so that way it works and is stuck to the versions they expect and has the right theming and functionality.
That option's there now. I mean,
some may use the shared stuff, and some people may find it's just more practical to just bundle it all themselves. I don't know. Speaking of Flatpaks, though, there is a bit of a fundraiser for infrastructure for FlatHub, which I think FlatHub is a necessary thing for if we're going to have if Flatpaks are going to be sustainable. I think like
you don't want to get them from GitHub and then compile them yourself, Chris,
or some GNOME developer's blog where he just updates it every few months with new links. No, that's not been working for me very well. And what I like that what Robert's doing here, Robert McQueen, is he also is intentionally trying to make this outside of GNOME. So this is more than GNOME. This is a bigger deal. So the GNOME Foundation agreed to support FlatHub by offering support for legal advisors and whatnot. So we sat down with them to figure out the best way to get the initial ball rolling in all of this. And GNOME has also offered their sysadmin to help with some of the setup and monitoring. But his intention is to keep FlatHub infrastructure independent from GNOME so they can make their own app decisions about making it easier to install proprietary apps, collecting donations for app authors, etc. So he wants to build up an infrastructure, and he's trying to raise, I think, £100. No, I'm sorry, 800, and he's already raised as of this post 532.
Oh, that's great.
But it looks like it's a paypal.me/ramcq if you want to donate. Paypal.me/ramcq. I think if you're perhaps, I don't know if this is a thing that exists in our audience, but if you're an end user who's an advocate of Flatpaks, this seems like a pretty good thing to get behind, the FlatHub. And I applaud Robert's decision to try to keep it a separate thing. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's obviously it's a very useful GNOME tool. But speaking of GNOME and Red Hat, and well, why not mention Fedora? Fedora 26 beta is out today as we record. I lied. There was one more breaking story today. And
you trickster.
I was going to come on here and give you my first takes. So I downloaded it, I installed it, and
you converted.
No, I mean it's Fedora. It's great. I mean it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a revving of Fedora. It's like GNOME 3.24.
Quiet march.
Yeah, it's exactly it. So I checked out Fedora Workstation, and it's got a new background, which is the one I have up on the screen right now, and that was what I took away from it. It's because if you're already on GNOME Current, there's nothing different. So when you install Fedora 26, it's just GNOME 3.24, and it's great. It's fine. It looks like a good solid release. I installed it with no issues. The performance was fine, but I don't have anything else to report. I thought I'd have a nice little bit of journalism moment there and do a little deep dive on a topic, and I walked away with realization that this is why distro reviews are not really a thing I do anymore, because there's just nothing there to really talk about. It's a great release, and if you want
the uncanny valley of distro reviews, where it's just good enough.
It's like what it is. It sounds like what Mark Shuttleworth was talking about early on when they're like, we're just gonna ship GNOME. and we're not really going to touch it. And if you just want a GNOME workstation, fine. That's what this is. It's if you want a nice workstation and it has GNOME and it's got a decent package manager on it, like, fine, have it.
Done.
You're good. They're not screwing around. That's what it is. So I instead decided to spend...
I would listen to a whole thing where you just gave like really sarcastic and unenthusiastic reviews or like short little
it's funny you
summaries
say that.
of distros.
I was actually thinking about doing a special for the patrons called the Linux Critic, where I would just do that.
That sounds fun. Yeah, you should.
But I wouldn't publish it publicly because I would, want to hurt feelings.
Yeah, there's bridges and all those. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it always causes controversy. But just for the patrons, the Linux Critic, I thought would be a good.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I have a few. Some of I could take some of our Slack discussions we've had.
A little drunk and then.
Oh God, I don't want to get people offended, but yeah, no, we've had some good Slack conversations that don't make it on air because it's a little bit. Some of it's sometimes slightly satirical. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. AHRS is just add warning satire to it, and I think maybe that's what I would do. But so you never know. You may see I should just do it now because somebody's probably going to steal the idea. So I decided to spend my time since I wasn't just spending all my time deep diving into Fedora. There's just not a lot to really parse for me. It's just a great release, but I thought maybe I'd spend a little time digging into Cockpit, and so I was reading in, and I saw on Steph's blog, I think his name is, he was doing a deep dive himself, and I thought, okay, well, let's go through some of his stuff. And I have it installed on a DigitalOcean droplet, so I was kind of doing some side-by-side comparisons to kind of confirm what he said. And I liked it. I liked what I found, and I'll link you to his conclusions as well. I thought one thing that was interesting is that Cockpit actually runs as an alternative Linux session. So unlike your webmins or your cPanels of the past that are running as an Apache, Apache servers listening and executing the pages, or their webmin where it's a self-contained thing, but it's listening as a remote port. This is actually using PAM and lognd and TTY, and if you have SE Linux, those things are being applied. So just right off the beginning, I was impressed with how Cockpit is getting you logged into your Fedora system. I thought that was pretty cool. And then on top of that, Cockpit itself has no special privileges. It's the credentials of whatever user you log into. So I thought, okay, this is fascinating. So if I log in as Chris F., I can perform exactly the task that Chris F. logged into that system has access to. Or, more importantly, I can't do anything that I don't have access to, which is hugely important for a remote administration tool. And I'm like, how the hell am I able to do all of these amazing things, even though I'm authenticated as my user? Well, essentially, by using sudo. So when you log in to Cockpit, there's a little checkbox that says reuse my password for privileged tasks. So instead of like remember my password, which is what you normally see, it's use my password for privileged tasks. And like you're probably guessing right now, it's essentially using PolicyKit in the background to sudo me and perform admin tasks that I would be able to do via sudo, which is also, I think, a brilliant way to do it. And then I thought, okay, well, this is great and all, but what if I don't want to expose my server to the web? Is there a way to still use Cockpit since it's a web-based tool? And Cockpit itself typically listens on TCP port 9090, where you then connect to that and it'll launch appropriate software. And I thought, okay, but anytime you have anything facing the network, it's essentially a security risk. Anytime a computer is listening to the network, there is the potential for exploiting it, and something that executes code on the other end. Yeah. So this is, I thought. So what I learned is, and I kind of learned this the backwards way, is that if you install like Fedora Atomic or Fedora Cloud, like my DigitalOcean instance, it installs Cockpit by default, but it installs it in a mode where Cockpit is configured for you to connect to it over SSH.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, super interesting, because I'm going to have SSH listening on my droplet, right? And so you can log into Cockpit over SSH, which is, I think, super awesome. And anyways, just sort of doubled down my sort of deep dive into this, kind of expecting it to be a little underwhelming. And at every turn where I was trying to figure out, well, how did they solve this problem? I went, oh shit, they really thought this through. And what's great about it is it's something you can deploy yourself. You can put Fedora Atomic, or maybe they call it Fedora Cloud, I can't remember, you can put it on a DigitalOcean droplet, and you can manage containers this way. They also use Kerberos for single sign-on if you have that. They have authentication tools that you can use to help replace the backend authentication completely if you want. It's well thought out, and it's layered, which kind of matches the Linux system in general, where it uses user permissions and policy kit, and it becomes an alternative Linux session itself. So it's bound by SE Linux, and I just it's not Webmin. It's not Webmin of years past that I had come across. It is a legitimate tool to manage a server that's really been well thought out, and I was impressed by the security architecture of it. So if you want to be impressed by Fedora on a server, which I know is a kind of an oxymoron for a lot of you, but it's interesting. The Cockpit it's such a great way to manage a Fedora server.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it makes me want to know other things.
Maybe there's a way to do it. I haven't really investigated that.
Because it does seem very approachable. And especially people who aren't like,
the UI
maybe they sysadmin some of the time, but they know the changes they need to make. But I don't remember which flag that is.
Yeah, or if this is another one that I was picturing while I was going through this was like, gosh, you know what I would use the hell out of this for is back in the day, I would set up test systems for developers, and then they would have to ping me to do things like restart a service or restart the box, and then I would have to stop whatever I was in the middle of, SSH in, and not a big deal, but if I could have given them a login to Cockpit where they could see all of their containers and they could go in there and turn them off and turn them on, and essentially to them it would just be applications. Yeah, that would have been so nice, man. So I could see Cockpit. I could have seen some uses for it back in the day. Now I just was like, well, okay, if I got this running on Fedora, well, let's put SabNZB in here. Boom, container of SabNZB. I'm like, oh shit, that was really easy. All right, let's try a Mumble container. Boom. Oh man, that was crazy easy. Like, this is great. And then you get performance charts and metrics and information right there in Cockpit. It's a good tool. It's a really good tool.
So server side, Chris, maybe he's coming back in this age of containers.
I tell you what, I there is something about it. It's sort of feeling good, like I'm scratching an itch that's been on my back for a while. I finally got a back scratcher with. Oh yeah. Well, you heard me mention it's a great way to play around with this stuff. DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code DOUnplugged. That's one word. You apply it to an account after you create it. I know that's tricky, but the reason for that is because it's like a $10 credit they apply. Well, it's exactly what it is. So they're applying it. They need an account to apply it to. And once you have $10, you can get surprisingly far with DigitalOcean. First of all, they got a $5 a month droplet, 512 megs of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, a terabyte of transfer. They have all SSD storage for all of the rigs, but it starts at $5 a month. Then it goes up from there into just phenomenally huge systems, hundreds of gigs of RAM, tons of CPU cores, whatever you need. And one of the things that's super nice is the flexibility with the storage. You can attach block storage, itty bitty, like I think like a gigabyte is the smallest number. I don't think I've ever attached one that small, but you can go up to 16 terabytes, which is what matters to me, and it addresses on your system as a block storage device. It's brilliant. I love it. And it makes expanding storage on a DigitalOcean droplet dead simple, which means once you get into something, you get going, you're like, geez, I can't believe how much headroom I have on the system. I spun up a $5 a month droplet, and I thought I could only do one thing. Now here I am doing 3 different things on it and using up my storage. You attach block storage, easy. No problem. And another thing, the other thing I want to mention about it, it's a great way to play with complex file systems because you can format them. You could do ZFS. You could do Btrfs. It's a great way to learn, too. Something else they've recently rolled out. They have a great infrastructure. They're always making improvements to it and integrating it in with their dashboard is cloud firewalls. 40 gigabit E connections into the hypervisors. Data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, Germany. They probably are going to build one on the moon one day. But what I really love is they're building in cloud firewalls at the network level. You'll have a central location to define access rules, apply them to all of your droplets, and then DigitalOcean enforces those rules at the network layer so the traffic never even hits your droplet. You don't even waste a millisecond of CPU time trying to process those packets. They do it for you at the network level, all through that super sweet dashboard. And then they have an API that makes it all smooth as butter. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code DOUnplugged. A big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged program. DigitalOcean.com. DOUnplugged. Thanks, DigitalOcean. Now, Wes, I'm wondering if you heard the big news this week. There is a reason why Ikey's joining us. It's not, other than I'm sure he just loves to catch up with his buddies, Chris and Wes. But no, it's because Solus is going to have some big growth coming down. Or like they haven't already, which is funny. It's sort of, but I think it's all about to look like small potatoes compared to what could be coming. So Josh did a blog post over on the Solus project site, and welcoming a new team member, Stefan. I think I'm saying his name probably right, to the project. And then a little bit down in the post drops the big bomb that I think is going to have huge ramifications for Solus, and announced that Ikey is going to become a full-time Solus developer in about 4 weeks.
Hey, yo!
So I heard a little bit on Late Night Linux last night about it. And of course, see there, they don't want to gush about Solus too much, but here I'm all about that. And so let's dig into this, Ikey. Like, first of all, congratulations, and it must have been kind of a hard choice. You've got I imagine, a pretty good gig at Intel.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to weigh the pros and cons, but eventually it comes down to, do you want to follow your dreams, or do you want to wait a few years and regret not having done them?
It sounds almost cliche, but I completely concur. It's been about 6 years, I think, 5 or 6 years since I quit my full-time IT consulting gig, which paid much better, to do Jupiter Broadcasting full-time, because I just knew I would really regret it. I would just really kick myself down the road. So it's with that sort of lens, I look at the situation. I'm very excited and very happy for you, Ikey. But this is often, in my experience, a transitional moment for an open source project. When the founder of the project or a key member of the project is able to shift to full time, I think it's made big improvements and big changes for Elementary as they've made some of those shifts. There's other projects out there I could name drop, but it's kind of pointless. I think it's going to be a huge shift for Solus, and you must already. I know you still have 4 weeks at your old job, and I know you got to be focused on wrapping that up. But your mind must already be running very, 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 very fast on all the different things that might happen, all the directions you might go. Where are you at? How are you doing this? What is sort of the first couple of steps for you? So I'm not asking you way down the road, but like, are you setting up like an office situation where you're going to be working every day? Like, what is like the first few steps you're going to take? And then the future stuff, we'll just see where that comes. But like, what's next?
Well, I mean, I work from home anyway, so in some ways there won't be that many changes. The first thing is doing, the legal, boring side of it, the setting up as a limited company, all that crap, just to protect me from that one guy and his Chrome install. But yeah, I mean, the very first things that change is the cadence of the project. So what I'm doing now is I'm using energy between effectively 2 full-time jobs, and while I've done a lot to date, and the cadence of the project has been pretty good, to be fair, now it's going to be my bread and butter, and it's going to be like my 9 to 5, if you like, but without the connotations of a 9 to 5. So I will be putting all of my work energy just into Solus. So instead of, like having those 2 or 3 hours at the end of the night, I now have all of the day to be doing it every day. So first thing I'll be doing is storming through the issues that we already have and working on refining some of those stuff.
Nice.
After that, things that I've wanted to do in the past but might have thought against for how they might be perceived or whatever, I'm kind of freer to do a few things now with Solus. There's risks that I can take, and essentially it's applying the startup culture to Solus in a big way.
Well, here was my first take when you announced the news. I think you'd probably acknowledge that a lot of the criticism that projects like Solus and others, even Mint, they take on is, one guy can't do all this. He can't possibly do all this, and at some point he's going to burn out, and he's going to have to quit. And I think you probably just told all those people to shut the hell up with this move, because essentially what you said is, to me, what it seems like you're saying is, well, when the rubber hit the road and I had to make a decision, I chose Solus. Is that sort of what happened?
No, I mean, to be clear, it's this is a transitional move for me. It's a personal decision, like I've enjoyed my job now for 4 years this month. I've absolutely loved it. The thing for me is deciding what I want next out of life. I'm not in a position now where I have to choose anything. It's something I voluntarily want to do. Call it an easing of the soul, if you will. It is something that I feel like I want to do, and it's something I feel like I should do because, again, this is my passion. It's something I believe in. And in terms of how people view the project, you are going to have that connotation around the project of, oh, well, he's only doing it as a hobby, And to an extent, people are only going to take you so seriously, but not fully. So for me, this is like, well, I'm fully committed to this project and the community around it. I am going to make this thing run circles, right? And there's already been a positive uptake by the community as well. So on our Patreon page, you can see since yesterday, I basically dropped it to them privately as a Patreon-only post, and I told them, well, first of all, I actually kind of clickbaited them first. I said exciting news coming and told them nothing. So
I noticed.
I left it up. Yeah, I left it up for I did that on Google Plus later. I'd already done it on Patreon, right? So I did that for about 4 hours or something, recorded late night Linux, went back, and I basically told them about it. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive. There wasn't a single negative comment about it. And then the beautiful thing that I saw was people was like, well, you know what, you're committing to it, so we're going to up our commitment as well.
Yeah.
And since then, the Patreon has jumped up like about $250 since yesterday because people have taken it upon themselves. It's like, well, if you're all in, we're all in. And that, like for me, the last few days have been very emotional, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just having people believing that you can do it.
That's got to feel good.
Life change.
Yeah. It validates a lot of things as well. But when people have faith in you, take everything else aside, take finance aside and take the methods way you're doing things. For people just to believe in what it is you're doing, that alone is empowering.
Yeah. And it also means that in a very real way, your success personally and the ability to feed yourself is now tied to the success of the project, which, not that you weren't 100% committed, but I think it just removes any doubt in observers' minds. And that's probably why you're seeing an uptick there. Because, I kid you not, Ikey, after you made the announcement, I myself was like, well, I better make sure I'm on their Patreon. And I went there and go, oh, good, I already was. But I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I just, even though I'd been seeing your posts on Patreon, like my first response is, well, I got to go double check that I'm, because that was how I felt immediately. It's like this is going to be a way for you to be able to keep doing this, I would imagine. So I should just say right now, patreon.com/Solus.
Yeah, the main thing for us is, as I said, you're going from those couple of hours a day. Now, I'm not trying to blow me on Trump or anything, but what we've managed to achieve as a project already in a fairly small amount of time, when you look at the grand scale of projects, we've repeatedly been told that everything that we've done, we've repeatedly been told that it's impossible, you can't do that, you'll burn out, this isn't how projects work. What do you mean is independent? Who are you based on? We've already done the impossible. We've basically bootstrapped this project, and now it's at a point. It's not like I don't want to say I'm completely financially reliant on Solus. I don't want people thinking, oh, now he's going to be scared to make decisions. Quite the opposite, To put it semi-crudely, this is basically retrofitting the balls of a Volvo S back onto Solus. Because that was a ballsy project, and that's effectively what I'm doing here. I'm going back, effectively back to roots with it. So
that's an interesting perspective on it.
Yeah,
it almost matters more than ever now. It matters more than ever now, in a way.
Yes and no, right? So there are some people who would say, like, we're dependent on this has got to be this way. Obviously, I've made sure I can make the transition, and that were anything to go wrong, that I was still covered to do it. And I've made sure it's a safe time in which to do. But yeah, people are basically then paying me to work on Solus. It's not like it's a hobby thing and it's just, the usual. We'll cover our hosting costs, right? It's quite literally keeping the lights on now.
I guess I can't really put my hands on it, but for some reason I feel different as a Solus user. So I've been just reconsidering all kinds of things about the Linux desktop recently. I got a long list, and the desktop and distro I use is one of them. And I really appreciate that. So just as an aside, if Ikey wasn't here, I would say this, and Wes, I think you would agree. I would say this in our Slack channel too. I feel like Solus has a unique take and tackle on building a great desktop Linux. And it's not a great VPS OS. It's not a great OS to run in VirtualBox, but it is a great OS to run on my XPS 13. And it's a great one to run on my desktop with a nice 2K screen. It is. Ikey, you yourself are aware of issues in the desktop world that most users don't think of, and you're fixing them in Solus before they're even a problem.
It almost feels like in some ways, like I could make a comparison to like what some people view elementary OS as for the beginning Linux user. Solus is kind of that for your like advanced particular Linux user.
Yeah, although it's simple enough that it's applicable to new users.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I guess so. I say all of that to also say one of the reasons why we talk about it on the show so much is because in the 11 years or 12 years, whatever the hell it is now that I've been doing Linux podcasts, it's one of the distributions that stands out to me as a strong performer, rapid growth, huge community, quick and large community adoption, I should say, a well-spoken, well-communicated team who has clear blog posts that clearly explain what the project's goals are and what they're working on. And now I can add to that entire list a reputation of following through on commitments on what they're doing when they went, like when you said you're going rolling, it's a rolling method that actually works pretty well for me. It's not totally crazy, and it's also not haphazard. It's like at certain times new updates come down for me and it works. Like it's fine, it's working. Like everything you've committed to, and now in a sense at a whole nother level is so far checked out. Those are five attributes that I don't say I could apply to many distros. You can say a lot of distros have been around for a long time. They've had a good slow burn. They have a great reputation. They have a huge deployment. You can give different attributes, but there are a lot of unique characteristics to the Solus project that have kept it on my radar essentially since the project, well, got a new name.
I think the best way to summarize it with Solus is when we started out, I mean, back in, like when it was Evolve OS days, because in some senses you've kind of got to ignore what came before because it was like the first attempt and then wanted to go independent because by that time it's like you'd learned the things that you wanted to do with it, right? So then we have the lifetime really starting with Evolve OS. And we were very adamant from day one that we were building an OS. We weren't telling people that we were building a distro, and we was very, very adamant with that messaging to everyone. And it became kind of meme-worthy after a while. But once we'd got all of that nailed down, because one of the things that I had learned from my previous experiences was how to say no. And I had to be efficient with saying no, and it was something I hadn't said before, and that was what contributed to past failures. Now, this time around, it's like, this is exactly what we're doing. This is what we define it to be. I don't care about all these other things, package management and servers, the usual controversial stuff you hear from me. This is what we're building.
So wait. So
now
so when you say no, can you expand on that? When you say no, it's like when people say, well, I mean, because I'll just play devil's advocate. You have Plasma desktop, you have Mate desktop. There's a lot of different flavors now. It seems like saying no would have been no. We're just going to do Budgie, and all of our resources are going to go into that.
So my version of no is effectively a tool of scope limitation. So when I'm working on something, it's like, okay, at this current state, we can't do such and such and such. We need to do only this. This is what we must focus on for now. We pretend other things don't even exist until this is done. And when we first started out, our scope was limited to supporting Budgie because at the time, that was where our tooling, our technology, our basis, our process was at. And then as time goes by, well, it stopped being just Evolve OS. We'd gone in, evolved into Solus. Sorry.
You're allowed.
I think you are allowed,
We'd evolved into Solus, if you like. And then by that time, it was the OS itself which was taking precedence in some senses. We made this mental differentiation between the operating system and the face, as I kind of renowned for calling it. So Budgie became the face. And at that point, it's like, we have all this stuff. We know how to rapidly deploy a rolling OS at this point. It's like, okay, at that point, it became, let's legitimize as a distro as well. So instead of just being an OS, because we weren't being assuming with most of our decisions, it's not, you don't feel belittled or anything, or the questions asked of the installer or anything, you don't think it's trying to chastise you or anything like that. So there's no limitation on skill levels with the way it works. You can use a terminal. Equally, you can go and use this thing. So it's like, okay, at this point, we have all our basics down. We've covered everything we want to be, but we still have this OS that other people want to use. And at that point, it became about also legitimizing as a Linux distribution as well. So it stopped becoming just being an OS. It became legitimized as a Linux distribution that is used as an operating system. So that's when those two bits merged together conceptually. And then that's when you started getting the other desktops and slightly more tangent use cases coming along with it. But they're all done in a way that's improved everything else. Like everything that came in improved something else. Like the initial introduction of Steam, I never intended to go off and create all this gaming runtime and Linux Steam integration and patching this and the performance, but it became something of a natural evolution.
Yeah.
That's going to get really old soon. But then that forced us to basically make all of our processes better by doing that. So our support for what we call Emul32, which is basically the 32-bit libraries, it became first class to the point where you was just setting Emul32 in a package build and boom, off it went. A lot of the things that we include, we do in that way. So we integrate them, they work well, and they improve something else as a consequence. Like we refine the core project and the core code base as a result of that.
Yeah, and fair enough. It's just as going back to the Steam thing, for example, it's a serious differentiator of Solus, and it, out of, again, a lot of distros I try, it makes for a really smooth out-of-the-box experience. The stupid term, I hate that term. But it makes for a smooth experience when trying to play games, when you just want to sit down and play some games with your kids. Which is how I pretty much play games now, is when my kids are sitting over me or standing over my shoulder. Dad, can we play Race the Sun or something like that? And so I quickly install Steam and
can we play Race the Sun?
And I tell you what, when something fails to load like that, it's so defeating as a dad. Like you're sitting there, you want to have a good dad kid moment around Linux and all that, and it doesn't launch, and it's just so embarrassing. It's like a shameful moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a defining moment slightly like that before. It was a few years back. Well, actually, it was at the very beginning of Evolve OS, so I was with my ex at the time. She wasn't the ex at the time, obviously.
But then, what happened? No.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't break up because of that. Okay. But I remember at the time that the multimedia codec support just wasn't fully baked at the time. And shamefully, I had to download another Linux distro, nuke and pave the computer to watch a DVD.
No.
It was mortifying. And experiences like that, they will stay with you.
Yep.
And you will make sure stuff like, I mean, it's a horrible term, to work out of the box, right? There's no box. No. I downloaded this thing. But things like that, like enabling users to get stuff done and staying out of their way, because an OS is not sexy. It's not at all. Like what you're doing is you're enabling someone to do something. You're enabling a workload. You're enabling a task. That it's something to be done on the OS. The OS itself, I don't believe personally you can charge for an OS. Supporting the project and what it enables around it, yes. But charging for the OS, no. Even Windows, they're not going to be charging for it,
right?
Because you're enabling you're enabling people to do stuff on top of that.
Yeah,
it's like, how do they get their applications? That becomes very important. What something that didn't used to be as important in Solus history, notoriously became very important. How do you get those applications to them? How do you keep them safe when they're doing their daily stuff, when they're accessing the internet? You want to make sure that they're up to date, and more importantly, that they're informed as well, that they are being updated, that updates are available, that this is a good process. So you're slowly educating them with good practices over time. So those become the core considerations of the OS, not the OS itself. Like, it's interesting to me and to Linux guys, like how it works internally, but it's what we enable people to do. It's not the OS itself. That's what should be important. And I think that's now one of the defining characteristics of Solus. What can we enable our users to do, and what experience do they deserve at the end of it?
That makes me wish we had introduced the show with clips of the episode. That would be the highlight of this episode.
No kidding, right? And that's what I really like. That philosophy does come through in a subtle way, but it's like 15 to 125 different subtle ways when you start using Solus, and each one of them is a complete message that essentially, I think, reflects the philosophy that Ikey just laid out there. And so I guess I was thinking about it as you were talking here, Ikey, and I wonder, do you think that in some ways this is just sort of like, now that this is going to be your full-time gig, proportionately, this feels like you're just getting started. Like you're you're really just getting started right now in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, what I've been lucky enough to been able to have done what I've done effectively as part-time, right? That's basically what I've done. I've done it in part-time, and I've had colleagues, I've had my teammates, I've had a community, which is now at a point where we've got so many patches coming in, I'm going to have to start having more gatekeepers to get the patches in on time, right? But obviously me working full-time, I'm going to be able to do that more quickly. But yeah, now all the pieces are there. I've got the deck of cards. Now I just need to build the house, right? That's a bad example.
Did you not do that on purpose?
Of cards.
They're really, they're really structurally sound cards. It's fine. Don't look too deep.
Yeah. They're like weighted.
Super glue, right? No, we use wooden planks that look like cards, and then we've got iron rivets on them. But yeah, I mean, I am now just getting started out. There's so much I want to do, and I'm excited by it as well, because it's 4 weeks from now, but also it's like, it's 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
It's a whole 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But once that comes, I mean, again, it's back to that word, cadence. What we're going to be able to do is probably should terrify over projects.
Yeah.
What we're going to achieve, because if it's taking that long, then you condense that. I can do this every single day, as well as doing the usual stuff, like dealing with bugs and making sure that you still stay in touch with the community. It's one thing I've always done, Reddit, Twitter, wherever. I'll always try and engage with the community, because I'm not above them, and especially now, I work for them, right? But there's so many projects that I haven't started. We're going to be able to get it done. For me, this is now where Solus breaks out. We spent all this time building this engine. We've designed this engine. I'm now confident that engine works.
Yeah, wow.
Let's go take off.
I'm so excited about that. I really can't wait to watch it, and I hope you keep us updated on what happens. I'll be keeping an eye on things. Now, I need
the PR now.
I have,
yeah, right,
right. Yeah. I have to ask. I don't know if you can comment or have an opinion, but can you talk at all about what this means for the Clear Boot Manager or Clear Linux in general?
I mean, obviously, that side of it, I'm very sad for that's happening. So I'm transferring what projects I have into the Clear Linux organization on GitHub. Mm-hmm. Now, for projects like Clear Boot Manager, as much as I obviously won't own them, they're Intel projects, I'm going to be sending pull requests to them. I'm still going to be contributing to them.
Solus going to continue to use it?
Yeah, no, definitely. I want to be clear here. I mean, there's no animosity or anything like this involved here. There's a lot of sadness at work because, I've been there 4 years. It's almost like a family at this point. Mm-hmm. I've been very honored to work with some incredibly talented people. And I'm not just saying that, the usual BS you hear, some gangster was shot, but he was great. He was lovely. It's not that, right? The stuff. But I've really enjoyed myself. And for me, it took me from a hobbyist open source contributor 4 years ago to an engineer, someone who can rationalize the design process and give real solutions, not give solutions where problems aren't present, but consider the problem that's already there. And for me, it's changed me a lot. So for the projects, because there's a bit of a special relationship, really, if you look at it between Clear Linux and Solus, as much as I am the common denominator there, there's a lot of shared philosophy in certain senses in the way that a distribution should be built and, focusing on the task at hand. And I'm not going to sacrifice that. Again, it's open source projects, and you see that as an example. I mean, I'm not here shilling, but too often you'll hear people complaining about a so-called corporate-backed project not doing open source things right. Well, this is an example with Clear Linux of it being done right, because there is that collaboration, and there is that crossover. There is that sharing of patches and, the slightly aligned philosophies. So that stuff will still continue. Basically the patches and the PRs that I send, they'll just come from a different email address. I'm still quite happy to use that technology. I'm proud of it. I was involved in it for a long time.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because it really, I think it's a point well made that it helped you sort of become an engineer in a sense that allowed you to build something in a way that I think a lot of hobbyists maybe don't build it. And it also made me realize, in some senses, this is really Solus is really, it's of course it's an evolution, but it's really your third go too, because you've got Evolve OS, Clear Linux, Solus. It's not like it's like the first time you've tried this either, which explains probably why it's fairly well put together.
Right, yeah. You've learned a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, by this time, it started off in the old days, contributing to Linux Mint. I'm very thankful for the times I had there as well,
Yeah.
I know people might think there's animosity there. There isn't really,
Yeah.
I think the guys nowadays, they're servicing their community. And to me, that's important for any distribution to be servicing their community. So started off humble beginnings all the way back there. We had Linux Mint Debian Edition. Then eventually I went my own way with Solus OS. I was contributing to Peppermint back there. I was in talks with the Crunchbank guys. They was using some of my stuff back then. You go all through the history. I mean, to give you an idea, my Freenode IRC account is over 7.5 years old, and that's the second account I've had.
That's a good nerd brag. I like that.
Right? That's a proper nerd brag.
Yeah.
Right? And then you had Solus OS 2. Eventually, then we had this break. This 6 or 7 months or so away from it all. That was actually after I had started with Intel, funny enough. That Solus OS itself was, and I hate to use the term, but put down. Like things took a bad turn during those days because I had come to the point then where I realized the stuff that I want to achieve as a Linux distribution. I think we all know now the only way I can achieve what I need to do is an independent distribution. And I tried it with the upstream. And, over multiple revisions, it's like V1, V2, V3 of the spec. We finally got to a point where Evolve OS is like nailed it. We got the right people in the community coming forward and that community building around it. So I would like to say I'm a fairly experienced distro engineer by this point.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think so,
and I think it shows. And I think it's a good investment if you're a Linux desktop user. I think you should go to patreon.com/Solus. He's got 301 as we record. I think we should bump that up a little bit. And if you've already got a Jupiter Signal Patreon or Unfilter, you got all the details you need. Just go over to patreon.com/Solus and become a contributor. I'm in myself, and
even if you're not, don't use it every day, I think it's just really good for the Linux ecosystem. This is the kind of sustainable OS development that we need.
That's one of the reasons why I'm also a patron of the Bcachefs developer. I don't use Bcachefs, but I think it's really important for desktop Linux, and so I'm also a patron of Bcachefs, which is another one I recommend. And by the way, if you become a patron, patreon.com/Solus, you get access to 27 Patreon-only posts. Now, some of them are going to be old, but the reason why I mention that is it shows you that Ikey and folks are clearly engaging with their patron community. So the perks are actually worth it. You get, as a Solus patron, like you sometimes can get access to ISOs a little early, or you just get an idea of what's coming down, like information about the new App Center. It's nice. It's nice as a user of the distribution to have access to this kind of stuff, and they actually give you value. Patreon.com/Solus.
For people supporting us, I will just say one more thing. You're not just supporting Solus as is. You're supporting our efforts in other projects as well. So, I mean, Brisk Menu, not quite, because, our beloved Wimpy is actually supporting Brisk Menu. But we've got projects that, there's upstream contributions to GNOME, to Mate. There's software that we have that's used everywhere else. You've got the Budgie desktop as well that supports. The Mate Slate notification theme, Linux driver management, which is becoming quite sexy to Arch derivatives, so they'll end up using that as well.
Nice.
So there's a whole slew of that stuff around there, and if you are our patrons, obviously you're supporting us and enabling us to do this. We will keep bribing you with secret ISOs and stuff, so you do get goodies.
Very nice. Yeah, I think it's, I think Patreon is becoming a good way to support folks like Ubuntu Mate, like the Bcachefs developer, like Ikey, and the entire Solus project. I think, and Jupiter Broadcasting, and I think it's because it's not because people want to make money off the internet. It's because having patron-funded either content or software development aligns the goals of the project or the broadcaster with the intentions, expectations, and goals of the patron, and not the advertiser or not a donor or...
Yeah, there's no third party. It's just you and them.
It's a very clean, honest, incentive and reward system that I think works particularly well in both content creation and in open source software development. So if you've been resistant to Patreon in the past, I would ask you to reconsider, not just because obviously it's in my best interest, but because I also think it's a way for us to get to sustainable software development for things that large corporations or whatever don't find a particular motivation to invest in, where we as end users, who have typically been underrepresented because Linux itself is underrepresented, have been just left to suffer. We now have a way to directly vote with our wallet that is completely unrelated to market share or strategic goals of Google or Apple or Microsoft, and is directly connected to what we want to see happen on the Linux desktop or in Linux content creation, etc. And I think that is one of the biggest things that we're not really discussing because it sounds over self-serving if I talk about it too much. But now that I can plug Ikey's Patreon, I have an excuse to say that. Patreon.com/Solus. Great work, Ikey. Very excited for you as somebody who also, quit a very great job to do this passion project. I think it serves the soul, and when you end up doing what you love, you invest more in it than you work harder than you ever have, which almost seems like an impossible statement for me to say to you right now because you've worked so hard already, but I can tell you'll work harder than you ever have, and it'll be more rewarding than it ever has. So I'm very excited for you.
Yeah. We're excited to see what comes of it.
Thank you for joining us, too. Congrats. It's just so... I feel like it's a birthday or like a baby's been born or something.
It's Ikey Day.
Okay, so I also want to talk about a very exciting project that is bringing something that's been locked down to Windows users or proprietary device users, and now it's available to all of us. And it's much further along than I expected and much easier to get started with. But,
You're talking about Windows Defender, right? We can run that on Linux now.
Thank you. Yes, that is actually a story. You do know that.
I do know that.
He does know that because it was one of the stories we discussed covering in this show. So he knows. And I just when I saw that is such a clickbait. When I saw that, Wes, I was like, that's brilliant clickbait.
I mean, the old IT admin in you want those firewalls. You couldn't find a great one on Linux.
Do you know what the funny nuanced story thing about that guy that got all that working? Do you know what the funny thing is? He's a Google employee.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you know that? You did? All right. So let's talk about your mind for a second. Let's go a little Ben Folds. Let's talk about your mind. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go there to support the show and sign up for a free 7-day trial. Linux Academy is like a classroom in the sky, like an academy, like some sort of academy, but in the sky that you connect to telepathically. How about that? Is that
Cloud Academy?
Wait, hold on. I'm getting a note here. No, that is not correct. That is not how I should. It is a platform, and it does teach you about Linux and all the things around Linux that you would want for your. But it is not actually an academy in the sky. I think I was thinking of Iron Man. Anyways, linuxacademy.com/unplugged. You go there, you support the show, you get a 7-day free trial, and you can see really how it works. Get a little taste of the hands-on labs or the learning pass, the practice exams, which I want to talk about more here in a second, or the video courses, self-paced, in-depth video courses on every Linux, cloud, and DevOps topic. They have a vibrant community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members that are there to help you learn and enrich their experience. And they do that through parts of the Linux Academy experience that are actually forkable by the community. And if you're busy, and I understand, especially as a father of 3 and a small business owner, you can be very busy. It's hard to fit this stuff in. That's why I really appreciate the Linux Academy course scheduler. You can pick a course, and then there'll be a time frame that you can work with. You set that up. It'll help you keep with that. It'll set goals for you along the way so it can be flexible. And if you ever get stuck and need help instructor mentoring, a real human being is available. And if you're on the go, if you've got some downtime on community transit, or if you're a passenger in a carpool, check out their iOS and Android apps to study on the go. They have cloud servers they spin up when you need them, you SSH in. They have nuggets, which are their cute way of saying if you just got a little bit of time, or you just want to do like a single topic, maybe you've got 2 hours and you want to do it like it's 5 minutes to 2 hours. Like you got some time, a little bit of time, single topic, deep dive, and then you got study guides you can download and take with you. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Also, the blog's got a what to expect when you're testing for the Red Hat exams. They have a whole rundown of what practice exams you should take, how to prepare yourself beforehand, all of it. It's nice because I know that's popular in the audience, and this is a good way to get ready. And you don't even have to really subscribe to Linux Academy to read the blog.
Yeah, you'll get a taste of it right there.
linuxacademy.com/unplugged. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring this here podcast. linuxacademy.com/unplugged, a platform for learning more about Linux by Linux enthusiasts. So Moonlight, it's not like a like a project to run Mono on Linux. It's not like,
that's what I was hoping for.
were you, Wes?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of demand for that these days. Remember Mono, everybody? What a big deal that was. So Moonlight is an open source NVIDIA game stream client. Now stick with me, because I actually think this is a huge deal. Because it takes the NVIDIA GeForce streaming crap that you could only the game stream that you could like stream to a couple of tablets and the NVIDIA Shield TV, which rocks. And
you would mention that.
Yeah, and like I think a Windows client. It was something that Steam kind of worked on, but some people say this is nicer, and it was something that Linux users just couldn't get access to, and it kind of bugs me because I've thought about. My kids have asked because people at school tell them about these games, so my kids have been like, Dad, we want Windows. I'm like, not happening. Not happening. And so the first time they asked, I was like, okay, we won't talk about that. The second time they asked, okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about, we won't talk about it. The third time they asked, I thought, nope, we're not going to talk about that. And then the fourth time they've asked, I thought, well, what if I did game streaming? So I've been sniffing around, and I found Moonlight, and I like the way it smells. So Moonlight allows you to stream your collection of games from a game stream compatible PC, read Windows, I'll tell you more about that here in a second, to any supported device remotely. It's perfect for gameplay even on the go. You can stream to Android tablets, you can stream to Macs, you can stream to Linux boxes, of course.
No way.
Low latency, 60 frames per second. Yes, really. Controller support. iOS, Android, you can even have a Raspberry Pi as the end streaming client.
Is that right?
You can turn a Raspberry Pi, I'm going to say it again, into the end streaming client.
So I can just throw my Xbox
throw it away.
Right in the
garbage. Put it in the garbage,
Yeah.
Wes. Just put it in the garbage.
I got this pie.
Put it in the garbage. Put it in the garbage here at the studio, Wes, would you? Just put it in the garbage. Yeah. Because the reason for this is it's really just using video streaming and a client that expresses back and forth the different input controls, and it shows up, and there's a little piece of software that looks for the game controller and stuff, and it communicates it back to the streaming PC, and then it sends everything over an H.264 stream, basically.
Okay, yeah.
A GPU accelerated H2. So that's part of the magic is the GPU on the NVIDIA. You have to have a system with an NVIDIA GPU, and I have the requirements in the show notes. And it has to be running Windows. So my vision was something that has a 600 plus NVIDIA GTX card, which is probably anything still running anymore. I mean, I'm sure that's wrong, but you know,
one would hope
anybody that's remotely interested in playing games is probably
check.
And AMD's GPUs are not supported because this is an NVIDIA thing.
Wah wah.
So you have to have a 720p or higher display connected to the PC.
No standard definition for you guys.
Yeah, the one thing I'm going to test is there are, from my Bitcoin mining days, I know there are some plugs you can put in the back of the video cards to make it think there's a monitor attached. So there's a display, we'll see if that's really, truly required. But here's my idea is put a decent-ish, older, but, you know, decent. I've got a GTX 970 card I think I could put in there and put that in the garage and then use this to stream to a Raspberry Pi device.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Maybe. We'll see if it works. I'm not sure because I was thinking like I should have it.
What kind of controller are you going to go with?
Ethernet, I guess for them, maybe actually the 360 controller. I was going to say I have the Steam controller.
Oh, you have a Steam controller, right? Yeah, of course.
But I think actually my kids would probably do better with the Xbox 360 controller.
That makes sense.
I might be grasping at straws, but Moonlight to me seems like a potential project to keep my kids on Linux, but give them access to a couple of games that are exclusive to the Windows platform. I don't know if a Raspberry Pi is going to do it. I might also experiment with the iOS apps. I think I might experiment with just setting up a client on the Linux machine because there's a Java client.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, which Java's working fine on their machines, so I might try that. And then, this is when I thought, well, for shits and giggles, I might give it a try. There's also a Chrome extension to act as a client to the stream, to Moonlight streaming.
That'd be convenient.
It would be actually kind of great in a way. Like any system you have this on, you could theoretically connect to your Moonlight server and start gaming if you forwarded the ports on your firewall.
Or your kid's got a Chromebook. You don't really want them using your like nice work machine, but they can use your...
Actually, they have Chromebooks at school, so conceivably they will be bringing them home someday, I suppose, as they go up in grade.
Yeah. You know, or Dylan just really needs to play Race the Sun, doesn't want to listen to the instructor.
That need is real. That is a real thing.
We've all been there.
Yeah, of course we have. So Moonlight's the project, moonlight-stream.com if you want to check it out. And yes, they support, so when you try it out, you can see, Chrome, and then they have a Java client that works on Linux and Windows and Mac. And then they have the Raspberry Pi particular like image. So it's like, which fascinates me. Because if it makes it really easy appliance, like then like anytime they have an issue, like, well, Dad just gives you a new SD card with a new Raspberry Pi because I got like 2 of them sitting right here. Here you go, kids. That fixes it. Plug that in, and then problem solved. Like if the Raspberry Pi thing works and it's super appliance like, that could be a game changer for this whole thing because
really
then it takes my troubleshooting down to basically nothing. I like that. And then, are you ready for this last one, which I'm never going to really test out? Well, maybe. No, I'm never going to test this out. They have a unofficial port to the Samsung Gear VR.
Oh, cool.
I guess.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to have Wimpy's opinion.
I wonder. I'll be interested to see about the about that monitor thing because it makes me think. Like, I wonder, could you go run this on some cloud GPU box, and then I don't have my nice machine on me, but I really I'm sure the latency would be terrible, but might be worth trying.
Yeah, to me, it does. It's funny you say that because it did make me think like, well, what if I could project the entire desktop this way? And I don't know, like I'd want the Windows desktop, but if you could use this, I guess it's reliant on the GPU feature. So I mean, it's driver dependent, but it'd be such a great way to maybe instead of use Wine to have a Windows application like AutoCAD or something like that on Linux.
Yeah.
Or Photoshop or Premiere.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Of course, you wouldn't have local file system access because it's on the remote system.
You could have a mounted remote file
you'd have to have
something.
like or a NAS that both systems are connected to. That might be legit. Man, so anyways, it's an open source. Oh, so anyways, okay. I'm saying that a lot. I apologize. If you take a shot, everybody, we should create a game and then put it in the comments. Every time I say anyways, you have to take a shot. The thing that I was like, geez, this thing seems really far along.
How much does it cost?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, what the hell? How can something like this be this far along? How the hell did they get this to work? It's created by Case Western Reserve University as a project at the MHAX Hackathon. And then it was taken from that at another hackathon in 2014, and now it's a project that is ongoing.
Wow. That's neat.
I thought so,
That's
too.
a worthy project. That's
I thought
great.
that was, it seemed really complete. And I'm like, how the hell can this be such a thing? It's up on GitHub. It's open source.
It's nice to have it out in the open because, like, the Steam streaming stuff, it was always like, all right, well, they kind of just like, put it out there, but there hasn't been much happening with it.
And then on the NVIDIA side of stuff, it's like, for me, I'm like, geez, if I could take a little PC with a 970 in it that has this capability and put it in the garage, and it's just they never touch it, and it launches these games for them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's super great, but I was never going to do it if I had to have it if I had to have them using an NVIDIA Shield or a specific device that supports NVIDIA Game Stream. Like,
It's a lot less useful.
That was never going to happen. But now that it can be anything from a Raspberry Pi to their Linux laptop,
done.
Moonlight-stream.com if you want to check it out. And if you've played around with it too, let me know at ChrisLAS. I would be really curious to know about how that's gone for you. So just a reminder, meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting if you want to come to our episode 200 meetup. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know how much, we'll try to stream some of it. I'll put like a camera out the window or something. So if you can't make it in person, which would be 99.9% of you.
We'll try to make it.
Something will happen at jblive.tv. Maybe I'll just have Wes run around inside the studio. Maybe I'll just do that. That could be. You could
chase me with the drone.
That'd be pretty good. Wes. That actually, I wonder if we could figure out a way to live stream from the drone so we can make sure that goes out on the live stream.
That would be amazing.
All right. Well, if you want a little more of Wes Payne, check out this week's user error. I think it was episode 12. Or go grab yourself any recent episode of the TechSnap program. Maybe subscribe to that and get Wes every single week. Check back here on Tuesdays where we do this show live. We'd really love to have you in our virtual lug. You're welcome. We just check your mic and then we get you in. Go to jblive.tv, join our chat room, and then do Bang Mumble to get all the info. And join us in our virtual lug and take part of the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for being here. We'll see you right back here next week. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. All right, jbtitles.com. Thank you, Mumble Room.
Yeah.
Fantastic and wonderful, as always, jbtitles.
You know, if Gnome was as reliable as the Mumble Room, we wouldn't have those kinds of problems.
Yeah, we really almost made it through the whole episode without a crash. So I don't think people in the final version, I don't think we made any mention of it in the show. But yeah, we had another Gnome crash. And yes, I haven't replaced it yet because honestly, I got other things to do. Like, we put this in here and it's just supposed to be working.
Yeah. And it's like 90%. Just works.
Yeah, it really is just pretty much during the shows that it seems to crash. Like, it sits here and runs over the weekend, although I suppose it could be crashing and we just don't know it because the stream does eventually come back on its own. So who really knows?
So no, it can't actually do work.
Well, who knows really what the cause is? And by the way, for the record, I got a few people that have snicker, arch. Well, that's what he gets for running arch. Well, first of all, LTS kernel and LTS NVIDIA driver. And I suspect that and it's not like GNOME has changed in the last 3 months. So I suspect that our culprit lies somewhere in either an NVIDIA driver bug, something happening between OpenGL and the NVIDIA driver, or OBS, OpenGL and the NVIDIA driver, or something that causes GNOME to take a shit, and then when GNOME takes a shit, it reboots, and in the reboot process, Pulse Audio restarts, and technically the recording never stops, but we lose all audio for a bit. So if Pulse didn't poop out, but what happens is we go back to GDM, and then we go back, and then we go back to GDM, and then we go back in, and in that process, Pulse takes a shit. And people have suggested we switch to every distribution under the sun. People suggested we switch to XFCE or LXQt.
Maybe we should just run OBS in an accession, just single window, full screen.
You know, maybe.
I'm suggesting DOS just so it gets suggested.
Yeah, the only thing that hasn't been suggested is Mac OS or Windows. Pretty much everything else has been suggested. Heart and Solus. JB, how come nobody's voting? JBTitles.com. I mean, people are voting, but it's pretty widely spread out. Look at that. Holy shit. That's one of the widest spreads we've had in a while. We gotta hone that in a little bit. Get that.
You spread it wide over there, Chris.
Yeah. Whoop, and the lights come on because we're getting. So now you can look with the lights on. You can actually see the touchscreen. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting ready for TechSnap. All right, so Ikey gets a promotion. Gnome's Bad Touch. No, that was from the pre-show. Let's see.
It was just so funny.
Solus plugged. Heart and Solus. Really, guys? That's what we're doing? We're doing Heart and Solus right now? The fuck's the matter with you guys? Come on, you know better than that.
Reminds me of the Huey Lewis and the News song.